What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We got another video here for you at Elite Fantasy Hoops with me, Mike Sakarian, and we got a good one for you today. We got special guest Billy Jackson from Top Tier Projection. Jumping on the show, we're going to talk about how Sorare NBA is off to a hot start in year 3. We'll be diving into how we're going to be attacking game week 1 on Sorare NBA, and then also taking a look at Top Tier Projections. And we're excited to be partnering up with Top Tier Projections this upcoming Sorare NBA season. And if you like what you see today and you want to sign up, you can sign up using promo code TEAMHOLD10. You'll see it right here in the show notes and in the description. You'll get 10% off on your purchase. Also, get ready. We're just a few days away from our first live before lock of the season, which will be on Tuesday evening. And that also means we get a value hunting episode right around the corner. The NBA season just a few days away. Enjoy the video. All right, we're here with the Opto King himself from Top Tier Projections, Billy Jackson. Billy, how are we doing, man?
I'm doing good, Mike. Good to be back on the show.
It's annual tradition now. I feel like you're like Steve Martin hosting Saturday Night Live. You come on here at least once a year, which is good because I've compared you to Steve Martin and me to the Saturday Night Live institution. So immediately making us look really good.
Hey, up there with Wob, all the other great guests you've had on the show. Right. So I'm just going to mention Wob. I'm up there somewhere in that tier, I guess.
I totally forgot that Wob was on the last live before lock. That's right. But we're excited. We got year 3. We're a couple days under our belt with auctions. Those kicked off on Tuesday. We're recording this on Thursday afternoon. What's been kind of like your first reaction to what we've seen so far in the auctions?
Well, have you seen the big card that I got? We haven't talked about this.
No.
At all yet. I got a huge card.
Well, what did we get?
Oh, I got a #1 rare Wemby.
Wow.
Like, I think I have the most expensive rare card bought yet so far.
Now, normally I wouldn't ask this, but it's all on the blockchain, so we could verify. Yeah. Well, how much did the #1 rare Wemby go for?
18 something.
Wow.
Which I was really happy about. That was the card I wanted to target. Sure. So in the rare collection, it's like actually my weakest of like limited rare and super rare. My super rare, I have a Luka MVP.
Okay.
And my rare, I have AD and Jason Tatum as my 2 MVPs. Really not enough. They're both classics. And so I came in this year saying like, all right, I'm getting a Wemby MVP in rare. And the other nice thing too is there's only 50 classic Wembys from last season.
Right, because they like really slowed the roll on those coming out.
So like, if you go up again, if you play your Luka or Jokic MVP and they smash, like you're still up against probably 1 to 200 other Lukas or Jokic's. Right. Now with Wemby, it's way less. So it's much more of an advantage. So I was really keen on trying to go for him. I expected his price to be really high out the gates. Last year, at the end of last year, he was about $1,000 to $1,200.
Right.
And I know people are looking at like about a 2x for in-season cards. And I was keeping an eye on that #1. And I'm like, geez, it's not that high right now. And I bid up to a little over 2,000 for it.
I was going to ask.
So I landed.
What was the like allowance you gave yourself, the budget for this? Like, where did you have a max where you were like, I'm not going past here?
So I had a max bid in. It was a little over $2,000.
Okay.
And yeah, I ended up getting it for 1,800, and I was pretty stoked about it.
That's
like
great.
Right now, like the later serials are going for like, there's an auction right now, Thursday afternoon, and it's not even over yet, and it's already getting 17 something. So
yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I think so we saw a couple of like weird things right out of the gate with the auctions, which I know if it's like a #1 or a jersey serial, people get a little bit more excited. And so those jump up a little bit, and then we see it come back down a little. And now, I mean, I will say it's actually seems pretty stabilized and it almost feels like it depends on the time of the auction, where like maybe more people are just at their computers at 5 p.m. Eastern and ready to spend money, where you'll see, like we'll just say Josh Giddey limited, for example, will go for like 55. And then the next time it'll be 48, but then the next time it'll be like 62. And so I kind of like that though. I was a little bit nervous we were going to see, and we had talked about this before, like offline before the season started, that we're like, are we going to really see some crazy numbers out the gate? And then people just kind of get frustrated as they get lower and lower and lower. But it's been relatively stable so far. Is that what you've been kind of seeing on your side?
Yeah, no, prices of, they do this every season. Like if you look at like the Sorare data charts from last season, like, you see the number one, number two, and then they kind of calm down and hit this little plateau. And I think we're getting there pretty soon, which is great. I think Sorare has done a great job of managing the supply early this season.
Absolutely.
Like I was saying, like I want to see 20% of the season supply out before lock.
Yeah.
And, like they have rare cards. What are we? 20? No. 48 hours, 50 hours after opening, and we're already on like serial number 8 of some of these rare cards. Like it's great.
I think I think they really heard some of the feedback from last season, and then knowing like how successful they were on the football side of things with the packaging that they've been doing, and knowing that they couldn't do that on the NBA side, and that they only had like a week to kind of get everything out there. They've done a really solid job on that so far, which is good, because I think if we see, naturally in this game, the prices are going to start high and it's slowly going to go down. And that makes sense because you're using the card longer. If it's going to be more expensive, you can use it for the whole season versus just half the season.
Exactly.
But they haven't been so wild. Like it hasn't been a huge gap. And I'll be curious to see too, because everybody I've talked to that plays on the football side, in full transparency, I don't dabble too much over there. But is that like, the prices actually didn't dip too aggressively in the auctions as the season went on. And I don't know if that's because they kind of turned the faucet on a little heavier at the beginning of the season and then slow it down a little bit. But it seems they're understanding like the financial mechanics of all of it right now, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Any other? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go right with what you're going to ask. And on the super rare side, prices are crazy. Like I'm really invested in super rare, and I'm excited about it, but I can't get in on any of these. Just saw Josh Okoji go for $270, and it's like, oh no, I can't get into these right now, and it's a bummer because I've got my super rare Luka MVP. I want to play him, and I can play him in classic. That's fine,
right?
But I can't get. Josh Giddey went for somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
Where do you think that's coming from? Do you think there was a lot of people who, like myself included, because this is what I talked to you about potentially doing, was moving from rare to super rare? Do you think a lot of people did that last season because of like some of the issues with the rare the rare prize pools, that like maybe they started graduating their gallery up to super rare, so now people are more keen on super rare? Or do you any like inclination as why we're seeing so much price running?
I think people naturally do want to progress up, and it really comes down to like, can they afford it? I think anybody, like, if you get into super rare, like if you like, you might not right now be thinking of getting into unique, but if you see the prices at a point where you financially can get in there, like you're going to want to do it. I think it's very natural. And I think, that's along the lines of what you just said, which is, prices were at a point where people thought that they could get into it.
I thought I could until I saw some of these auctions. I might still be dabbling around in the rare streets, I think.
Yeah. And then the unique side there, I actually bought a unique card about 2 weeks ago, a classic one. And I won first place in super rare champion last season.
That's right.
So I won a unique Josh Richardson that I'm still holding on to. And so I just need one more in order to play unique contender.
Right.
And like Josh Richardson, like, he's not great, but like he could have he had some 40-point game weeks last season, or high 30s.
Yeah.
So, at a cap of 20, like that can be a really nice play. So I got a Max Strus unique. And so now I'm capable to play unique contender. So I've had my eyes on that as well. And there are like 6 cards out for auction. There's only 6 unique in-season cards out for auction this morning.
I saw that. I saw the first one that came out. I want to pull up Max Strus just for people who haven't looked at Max Strus's cards yet. And we're not going to see the. Oh wait, we're not going to see the in-season one here. Let me see if. That's from manager sales. Excuse me. Sorry. I want to pull this up, and this is the limited one, so you're not seeing Billy's unique, but the headshot on Max Strus is just like real, I don't want to be here on media day vibes, right? I mean, that's long weekend. That's a Tuesday after a long weekend right there. Very hungover Max Strus.
That was a nice tweet from you the other day on that. I like that.
Thank you. So yeah, I like that. Not only did you get a unique, but you got this one, because he tough morning for Maxie.
Yeah. So other than that, I mean, The limited prices seemed a bit high at first. I kind of stayed away. I haven't got a limited in season card yet. I've got a decent few number of rares, but no limited in season cards yet. But maybe we'll get there. We'll see.
The one other thing about season 3 that I wanted to bring up before we start moving on to some of the other stuff that I'm excited to get to today, I'm seeing a lot of discourse from people who are I don't think they've understood it yet, or maybe they're just like, this is taking more time than I was used to, where there seems to be a little bit of a pushback on the multi-entry thing. And I will share my thought in a second, but have you are you seeing any sort of downside to multi-entry, or are you just excited that we have more opportunities to fire some lineups in?
I'm stoked about multi-entry. I mean, like, sure, it's advantageous to people with large galleries and disadvantageous to people with small galleries. Um, it is going to be a big advantage for people who, especially in the limited tier, I think, for people who have like strong team collections and XP on their cards, especially their MVP cards. I think that's going to be pretty key. I got one of my buddies is kind of into Sorare because he knows I'm into it and he kind of just wants to talk to me about it.
Friendship.
And so he like puts a little bit of money into it. And I actually, for his birthday, I gifted him a Luka Doncic limited.
Wow, you're a good friend.
But I wanted as I already had one from S1. I wanted as a reward in S2. I could have sold it, but I was like, give him something to play with.
Yeah.
But like, it has like a 1% boost on it. And I'm like, you're never going to win anything with that Luka card in the classic contest. So I pleaded with him to buy some in-season cards like right before the deadline to get that boost up to 2 or 3%. So he has a chance, but the team collection boosts are important to get back to your question. And yeah, I think it's good for the people with big galleries. It gives people a reason to keep spending. I mean, and keep collecting. Otherwise, like, there's no reason for me to keep collecting limited cards.
Yeah. Well, I was just hearing people. I think people were like, "Oh, it's going to take too long," or like, "Oh, well, then what? Like, what if one lineup, like one guy does well in one lineup, but doesn't do like, oh, if I put him in my main lineup, then I would have won." And I was just like, "That's the same decision making you were doing, except just with
champion versus contender."
Yeah, champion versus contender, or contender versus your training lineup or whatever, like just throwing them into training. Like, it's the same. I get that it's probably taking an extra 10 minutes of your time, but I think ultimately it's good. Like, it's good for Sorare because obviously they want us to keep interacting with the marketplace and giving them some money. But I don't want to submit 47 training lineups every week. I don't want to do that, and I think you're still, putting the same emphasis on being like, okay, I think this is my best shot at winning. And then you get to put some weird ones together. I think it's ultimately good.
Yeah. I mean, there was no incentive to really have more than one MVP beforehand. And now, like, like I had like a bunch of limited MVPs. And what was I doing with them all? Now I can play them all. It's awesome.
Right.
I had no incentive. I had my Luka super rare MVP. I'm lining that up every single week. I have no incentive to buy another MVP. Now, when I started multi-entry was announced, I went out just a week ago or so. I got an AD. And now I've got 2 because there's 2 entries in that contest.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So I love it. I love it. I love multi-entry.
So let's talk a little bit about some strategy heading into this upcoming game week, since it starts on Tuesday, which is nuts. And I think like a lot of people, myself included, have been trying to think of like, okay, who are some of the cheat codes? And I already made fun of, I understand the case for it, but I like to make fun of the change.org petition that was going around to get the rookies out of the first game week. And I think there's a lot of like, obviously, yes, it'd be good to have a guy with a cap of 0 in your lineup for the first game week. That's like a cheat code. But there were some other players that I know keep getting knocked around. Like we've mentioned, Trae Young, who I believe has a cap of 33, which seems mispriced. Josh Giddey in a new location with a cap of 17 feels nice. And you brought up a great point of being like, maybe we should take a look at some of these guys who everybody was excited about heading into last year and how they performed. So what were some of the things that you found when diving into that?
Yeah, sure. So I can actually share that. So, and this is the type of stuff. So obviously, I run top tier projections and, I've shared all this analysis with my subscribers already as well. So this is something that you get as a kind of added perk in addition to the lineup optimizer, which we'll demonstrate a little later too. So basically, I kind of, all this is just rambling up here. You just kind of talked about, which is, what did this look like last year? Right? Like, who was the Josh Giddey of last year? And let me ask you, like, who is the guy who was a young point guard who's capable of putting up a lot of stats, a year ago who got traded from a contending team playing behind an MVP candidate into a rebuilding team where people expected him to get all sorts of usage and had a cap under 20. Who is that guy?
I want to shout out Sorare Sharp himself, the Swingman Pod, George St. Ledger, who is a Jordan Poole super fan. But Jordan Poole was the guy everybody was talking about, who I've been joking that Cam Thomas might be this season's Jordan Poole, just because everybo's like, this guy's going to win the scoring title. And I was like, yeah, but what if he doesn't? What if he's bad? But yeah, Jordan Poole, that would be the guy, right?
I mean, and that's it's like the mirror image of like what Josh Giddey is into this year and what everyone's expecting. And I was really heavy on Jordan Poole going in, and he had a cap of 19 at top tier projections. We were projecting him to score 39.6. Everybody had him projected high.
Yeah.
And, which is a big value, 21-point value. And he ended up putting up 25.9. So he had a value of like 7.
Right.
Like that's really mediocre.
Which is if you got him for like a floor price, but what Jordan Poole was going for heading into that season, I would not say would be a floor price.
Exactly. So these are some of the players that I looked up that had the highest projected value. I remember Julius Randle was another one I was really high on. Just because he had a beat down cap. He had a bad postseason run leading up to the season. Projected value 11. He actually did smash, and I had his super rare card. I lined that up. I remember. Jonathan Kuminga was another big one. A lot of people were looking at a cap of 5. He put up a 25.7, which is a nice value. It's not like an enormous score. You got to kind of hit on your higher cap guys in order to actually give that some real value.
Right.
Malik Beasley was another one. A lot of people were going after. I don't remember if people were really going after Yusuf Nurkic or not.
No, I don't think Nurk was getting the same kind of love that. But I do remember
that. He did do well. He put up a nice score. Also, notice how accurate my damn projections are here. Look at this. I projected 26.2 for Kuminga. He puts up 25.7. I'm off by like a point on these things.
Not even a half.
I'm just seeing these now. Okogie. I was off by 0.4. Unbelievable.
That's incredible. You were locked in. Same to Grant Williams too. You're just off by 2 points there.
Wow. All right. So where was I? Let me stop patting myself on the back. Where was I? I don't know. Anyways, so a lot of these, they performed pretty well. But the key is 500 other people were playing these guys in limited. You're going up against huge percentages of people who are playing these same players, and they're not enough to even get you like by yourself into that top tier. So it's really difficult.
It is. Because I've been thinking about that a lot lately about some of these guys where I mean, there are examples where you're going to need them if they really put up like that ceiling score. And I'm trying to think more about it. Like, if you're playing in the in season, is it more important to be springing for these guys because there's less of them out there? Although the counter would be like, yeah, but if they got them, they're being played. Like nobody is buying the in-season Giddey for game week 1 and then not playing it in that lineup. So you will be going against all of the Giddeys.
But there's not a ton of them. There's not going to be a ton of them. Like in the in-season limited, I mean, there's probably going to be, let's say there's 200 of them out there. You'll be going up against 200 Giddeys. Right. So you're not guaranteed a podium, even if he absolutely smashes. Like you've got like a 1% chance at a podium if Giddey smashes.
Right. And you're almost better. I mean, this is if you're coming from the daily fantasy sports streets, this is like a common conversation. But like if you, especially with these prize pools being so top heavy, you're almost like, and no one wants to hear this, but you're almost better off like bottoming out than having like a mid-range score. Like
going contrarian.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like trying to be a little bit different where like, if and for anyone listening, I'm not saying don't play Josh Giddey game week 1. I think he's going to project to be a smash, but I'm saying if everybody is playing this guy, and if you can find a guy that can put up a similar upside that's being played by like 1% of the field, now you have to get less pieces right. Because if Giddey is in the optimal lineup when all is said and done, that means you have to go 5 for 5. Where if Giddey flames out a little bit in game week 1 and your guy pops off, you might not have to go 5 for 5. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they all have to put up good scores, but there's like margin for error where like if a Giddy goes off or a Trae Young goes off, you have to be perfect in that first game week.
Yep. Yeah. You hit it right on.
Yeah.
So, also I went in and I looked at who the people who were that did pop off in game week 1. Like, what were the top 10 value guys in game week 1? And so here we've got him right here. So Max Strus put up a 58 at a cap of 18 for a plus 40 value. So if you had him, like, and I can't imagine a ton of people lined him up. But anyways, he popped off. Cam Thomas, he was a stud in game week 1 and game week 2, putting up 45 a piece each at a cap of 9. I mean, he just carried people.
Just smoked.
Yep. And I think I do like Cam Thomas's potential this season.
No, I do too. I was just joking that he's got kind of the same profile as Jordan Poole, where he's like a guy. He's not going to get you a ton of assists and rebounds. You just need him to take 30 shots. But good news, Brooklyn Nets. Like he will be taking 30 shots a game for you.
Yep. I do you think over or under 30 points a game for him?
Oh man, 30 so much. But I mean, I think if you said 28, I'd say over. So I definitely feel over 28. 30 is so many points.
Yeah, I agree. I'd go over 27.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I hear people saying 30, and I think that's nuts.
That's a lot of points, man.
Cam Thomas.
Yeah. That's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander numbers.
Yeah. So also Xavier Tillman here. Now, this I think is important, right? He had a cap of 24, and he put up 51. Like, that's enormous. And we're just talking pre-show, I don't think everybody was like keyed in on him all summer because this is a result of Steven Adams being injured. Right. And I don't remember a year back exactly how in advance we knew that. Like, this might have come out, a day or two before lock. And so I think people need to be thinking like, okay, let's maybe not blow all my money right now on Giddy and Trae Young and all those guys, because some of these guys are going to present themselves as opportunity in the last 48 hours before lock this week. So
I mean, we heard something. We got some news today, and I to put this to our YouTube membership subscribers, I put this in the chat earlier today. But Isaiah Hartenstein's now going to miss 5 to 6 weeks, and if you look at the Oklahoma City Thunder depth, they got Chet Holmgren. They've got Jay Will, the taller Jalen Williams, who's hurt. He's going to miss some time. Kenrich Williams is also hurt. So they've got no bigs outside of Chet Holmgren. And then you see Ousmane Dieng has a cap of 6. And if he's going to play like 15 to 18 minutes, and that's going to be an under the radar guy that I don't know how, I mean, maybe unless, of course, Top Tier Projections already has him pumping in the numbers. If that is the case, then, Dieng could be one of those examples of like somebody that you find out later, that could still pop. So I guess and maybe this is like a good transition point to start talking about what Top Tier Projections has to offer and how how you would use this product to kind of like game plan heading into the week. Because I think like an interesting thing that we could do right now is when we're talking about like the Giddy and the Trae Youngs that are popping, maybe finding using the projections to find some potential alternatives. Because I think one of the unique things that you do in your projections compared to some of the other products that we've used in the past or that are out there for projections is you do a really good job of figuring out like the ceiling for the multi-game that happens throughout the game week. So a lot of the projections you'll see if they'll show you what the guy will probably get on Monday. But if Jokic has 3 games this game week, you do a really good job of being like, well, this is what a ceiling could look like with these 3 games. But yeah, do you want to take us through kind of maybe how we would use Top Tier?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And what's we've got a good amount of subscribers that subscribe to Top Tier Projections. A lot of the top players in the game, actually, whose names are subscribers of Top Tier. And one of them always talks about what's called like my secret sauce.
Yeah.
And that is that formula, our formula, which calculates basically that multi-game variability effect. And so it's not even so much really a ceiling. It's more of actually like an average. And what's interesting is you probably think it's a ceiling because it looks so high. Yeah. And it looks so much higher than, for example, Sorare Data or, Momentum Labs previously or any of those other places did. But it was actually like kind of like right on. It wasn't like the ceiling. It was actually an average.
Right.
And, a lot of times these players overshot, my multi-game effect.
And I
So
think too, just to throw this out there before we get into it, because I know there's always someone that's going to be like, "Well, dude, Chop Tier said he was going to get 35, and he only got 32 this week." So, like, this is the way I approach projections, and I'll say this as someone who is a user and not a creator of it. Like, this helps guide decision making. It doesn't mean like this is what you have to do, this is who you have to go buy, but it allows you to just kind of like shrink this. All we're trying to do is shrink the decisions we have to make. And if this helps you like rule out some players, it's just kind of like it helps you in that way. So this shouldn't be your Bible. I'll say that it shouldn't be your Bible, but it should help you just like narrow decisions, I think. But anyways, Billy, how like if a new user or any user is kind of diving into top tier, how would you like approach using it for heading into, say, like game week 1?
Yeah, sure. So let me go ahead and share the screen right now so I can show. And that's the beauty is there's so many different ways you can use it. And if anybody wants to become a subscriber, go to toptierprojections.com. You can scroll down. You can see our pricing table here, monthly, yearly rates. Click start trial and you'll get a 7-day free trial to start. And also make sure you use promo code TEAMHOLD10 to get a 10% discount off
That's
of
right,
these
baby.
prices.
That's right.
So when you go in and log in, you'll be brought to our dashboard. And this is the beauty of like, what you were saying. So a lot of game weeks, like I'm just swamped and I just don't know what to do. Like, and I'm just like, all right, I just need some decent lineups. So you can go into my collection. You can go to your limited collection, say, all right, find me a classic champion contest that's good. And boom, great. I'm going to go just ship this right into Sorare and I'm just going to line this thing up.
Yep.
And I did that a lot of times and it was fine. But a lot of times you want to kind of dive a little bit deeper, right? And so basically what we have here is so let me kind of go back into all players. So these are all the players in the NBA pool, and we have their projected score, their cap, and their value, which is how many points above the cap we project them to score. So you can sort this by value, and you'll see, not too much of a surprise. You'll see all of these zero cap rookies are the best value plays of the week. You'll see a lot of guys. You can filter this to not be the zero guys.
Right.
Oops, I should say greater than 0. All right. And you can see, you got the Josh Giddey's, Julian Strother, Peyton Pritchard. Wow, I didn't really kind of expect him to be a great value play.
Yeah,
Trae Young, a lot of these common plays. So what I do is I kind of like look at cap ranges and I try to just kind of think of guys that are kind of slipping past people. Like if you really kind of scroll past here, Walker Kessler is a guy I really like for game week 1. He can always kind of pop. Cap of 20 is really nice. Sam Hauser's got 2 games in the first game week. That's why he's got that little secret sauce effect here. Even if he doesn't do good, he might only put up 10 points the first game, but he could put up a 20 the next game.
I think that Jalen Smith right below him too is someone that's not going to be on people's radars. And Chicago Bulls also today just let go of Kenny Lofton Jr. and I forget the other guy's name. They're basically playing 2 bigs. It's Vooch and Jalen Smith. That's all they got there.
So they let go of Kenny Lofton. So that opened up 1 more minute for Jalen Smith, everybody.
Here we go. But no, they just literally only have 2 bigs. They have 2 bigs on the team. That's it.
Yeah. Jonas Valanciunas, he's the guy I kind of like. So this like 6 cap, this +6 range, I think these are a lot of guys that give you a lot of good value, but aren't going to be very highly played. Miles Turner, cap of 28. He's a guy that can go for 50 plus anytime. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see him on that list of top 10 value plays of game week 1.
Then so one other thing too I want to throw out here, just thinking about how like you can use this and how we were talking about getting different a little bit. You can with the optimizer, right? If we were saying like, okay, Giddey and Trae Young are probably going to be 2 of the most popular plays, whether it's classic or in season in game week 1, you can kind of lock them into the optimizer and run it. And now you're going to see, okay, if Giddey and Trae are going to be played a lot, here are 3 more guys that are probably also going to be played a lot. And I think you can use that information to be like, okay, well, if that's because everybody's using the same cap. So instead of plugging in a 17 guy and a 33 guy, what if I plugged in like a 28 guy and a 22 guy? And like, that's how you can start getting a little bit different. I just think that's like a fun way to use the projections. And I'm not sure if everybody's doing that. I think normally you're just saying, how can I build my best lineup? You can also get a feel for like how other people are building lineups.
Yep, totally. 100%. So yeah. And one thing you can do is use my collection. So these are all the players in the pool. Again, I really like looking through some of these guys. I think this is probably good for viewers to see, and also get a sense of, and if you subscribe, you'll see these numbers update every day as new injury announcements come out. I've heard actually a lot of people talking about Max Christie as a nice potential option. So he
Interesting.
actually might get a bit of play. I wouldn't be surprised.
Okay.
Even Bam, go down here. Bam at a cap of 33. He can put up 50 plus pretty easily.
Bam, the 3-point shooter now coming out of
Yeah.
Miami, apparently.
Indeed. So I like to kind of look down, find a guy that I like, and then lock that guy in rather than locking in a Giddy or a Trae Young. That's how I personally like to use it. So if we go to my collection, you can actually see the common cards are kind of new and weird, so not loading into our collection yet. But you can go into a tier like limited, and you can run it for, I don't have any in-season limited cards yet, so limited champion, and you can see what your lineup becomes.
And I think one of the other cool tools now, I'm sorry if you were just about to get to this too, so I apologize. But that saved lineup, right? So you just run this, and now that we have multi-entry, I think this is even more important because you're going to have to run this a couple of times. And I like that the next time you run the optimizer, it'll rule those guys out, so it won't throw you into that lineup. And I think that's got that feature was cool last year, and now it's very important this year.
Yeah. And so right now we need another day or two to build it out. So right now we can only save one per contest, but we are actively building that to make sure you can save the amount of correct lineups for every contest. You can sort, you'll go into saved lineup and you'll see limited classic champion 1, 2, and 3. Cool. And then so if you ever want to get rid of one of them, just press the trash icon and that'll get rid of it. So, but yeah, you can save it and then you can go into another one. And then you can exclude all those players, so none of those players get put into the lineup again, which is great, like you were saying. Great. So yeah, and you can do this for every tier. Tip, you'd have to just press this button to reload new cards in, which we're working on making that a little bit smoother too. But yeah, that's pretty much how the website works, Mike.
Yeah, that's great. Again, we're partnering up, so obviously I'm into it, but we used it, or I used it specifically quite a bit last year. And again, it just helps eliminate some decisions when you're staring at your gallery on the Sorare website and you're just like, okay, well, what do I, you get stuck in the same patterns of putting these same 3 guys together in your lineups. And this kind of helps open to some other opportunities. So I do think it is very helpful. And the fact that you're able to put your collections together, it's pretty sharp. So definitely recommend checking it out. And if you tune into Live Before Lock, which we're doing Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Before game weeks, except for game week 1, it'll be on Tuesday. You'll see a little bit of it. You'll see a little bit of some of the value popping at the top, but it won't be the same wide open access that maybe you saw last year with the Momentum Lab stuff that we were doing. So recommend checking out Billy's top tier projections. And they have a fun little Discord community too. And you're just going to see a lot of the people up top when they tweet out after they win a game week, they're going to be like, thanks to Billy Jackson's top tier projections, because you guys were cooking last year.
Yeah. So, and I've just been kind of playing around. So you can exclude certain players from your lineup to get lineups without some of those common players too. So lots of tools. We're always building it, always improving the site. And that's that.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I'm excited that you were able to come on. We're going to have to get you on as we were talking about this offline, but maybe like a contributor for some Live Before Lock episodes as we roll through the season. So excited to get going. What before we wrap up, so you've got Wemby. Wemby has made it in. Do you have somebody else circled now that we're getting ready to start attacking, or would you rather wait until that is purchased before sharing that information?
So in the rare streets, I've got a few teams I want to go for. Okay. So I've got some teams, and these teams have good players to complement them. So one thing that I also provide to subscribers is something called a recommended collection. So I break down what your gallery should look like. You should have 1 MVP. You should have so many players in a certain cap range, so many players in another cap range, and so many players that are spot plays.
Right.
So one thing you need another guy for champion that's a cap of 38 or above that you really like. So I have a few guys that I like. I like Zion. Yes. I like Cade Cunningham. I like John Morant. I like Anthony Edwards. So I'm kind of looking for one of those guys, and then to also build out their team collection.
That makes sense.
So with Memphis, if I got John Morant, I'm also really happy if I can get, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, also in some nice plays, some of that bench plays in case any of them miss time.
Right.
Same with the Minnesota Timberwolves. You get Anthony Edwards, but you also got Rudy Gobert, who's a good, valuable play. And then you fill out that whole team, you get that big boost on top of them too. And I think that's the way I'm looking at it. I'm looking at collecting 4 teams in the rare scarcity.
also think that's, something that we always talk about doing. I don't know how often people do it, but you talking about getting some of those bench players on that team where it's almost providing a handcuff where if somebody goes down, instead of like we find out the injury happens and then we see the price like rocket up. So getting ahead of that now also it helps the team boost that we were talking about, but it also saves you some money come February when all of a sudden a Marcus Smart is going for like $32.
Yep.
But dope, man. Thank you so much for, coming on and showing us the top tier stuff. And I think the more people that are building cool products in this space to make the game easier and just more fun to tinker around with is important. So, and I know there's a ton of that stuff on the football side, but you might be like the last man standing right now on the NBA side of things. So we need to support top tier projections so that not only is it good for you guys to stick around, but maybe then some people start being like, hey, we need to build some stuff too, because we need more people building some stuff because it's Web3 and you have to build, right? Anything else? Anywhere you want us to send people? Obviously, we'll have top tier projections and your Twitter linked in the description so you can check them out and go follow them over there.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, man.
Billy, thank you for joining the show, man. It was good to have you on. For everybody else, make sure you tune into Live Before Lock. We'll have a value hunting episode drop before game week 1. But otherwise, we'll see you in the Sorare auction streets.